Well, we're going to go ahead and dive in. So, oh. Who can't hear me? All right. So yeah, we're in the home stretch of NIWeek. If you are anything like me, my brain has turned to absolute mush right now. And the last thing I want to see up there is more block diagrams. So I've got good news for you. We're not going to be talking about anything block diagram oriented. Do I?
Only front panels.
It's just front panels, that's right. I know. I got the chance to give this presentation at the CLA Summit this last September, and before I got up and gave the presentation, I was terrified. This is by far the hardest presentation I have ever put together, and it's the hardest presentation I've ever given, because its scope is broad. It's everything a software engineer needs to know that has nothing to do with software engineering. And I hope that you're like, what? What exactly does that mean? Well, we'll get there in just a second. So not only is the scope broad, but its application is nuanced. So I'm going to be making some statements. They might come across as absolute, and here's the way that you do things. That's not the intent. These are suggestions where each of us is going to have to contextualize what we're about to say for your specific environment. All right, so that's enough meta talk. What actually is this presentation? So in effect, it's a series of proverbs based on my failures in my career. I have had quite a lot of failures. I've stepped on a lot of landmines. I've jumped into a lot of holes, and it's hurt. And so my goal was to try and take the lessons that I've learned and package it up in a digestible way and hand it out. P.S. This entire presentation, lockstep, full video of me is available at that bit.ly link. So that's my safety net in case I blow this. That's actually a good one. This one we'll see how it goes. Anyways, so that's what we're going to be talking about. These are lessons learned from my career. What's that career look like? If I haven't gotten the chance to meet you yet, my name is Cilino. I've been in LabVIEW land for pushing 20 years now. I currently work at Cirrus Logic, which was recently certified as a LabVIEW Center of Excellence. If you're not familiar with the Center of Excellence program, suffice it to say it is an NI certification that says you're doing software right, which is really pretty cool. I'm the tech lead at Cirrus Logic. I've been a LabVIEW champion since 2017. Who are LabVIEW champions? They're that bit.ly link. I'll tell you who they are and what the program is. I love the Champions program. I think it's awesome. I've been a CLA since 2014. And like I said, I work at Cirrus Logic, where I am the framework architect responsible for making validation much more efficient and hopefully cheaper by introducing and architecting frameworks, software engineering, but also doing mentorship, project coordination with contractors, the whole ball of wax. I tell people the work I've gotten to do at Cirrus Logic is the work I'm most proud of in my entire career. I'm so thankful for it. Before that, I was at NI for about 11 and a half, almost 12 years. And I started as an applications engineer where I got to talk to a lot of folks like you, learn your applications. And then I moved into DAC R&D, where I took ownership of the DAC Assistant. And I always joke with folks, how many of you have used the DAC Assistant before? A handful of you. Okay, all the good stuff? That was me. All the bugs? That was somebody else. Clearly it's not true. But I got to sit under some incredible mentorship while I was while I owned the DAC Assistant. Big call out to Reed Lee, I don't know if he's in the room or not, but a lot of my software engineering skills and build process and all that stuff I picked up from him. Anyways, spent some time in DAC R&D. Then I moved into marketing. That's a little bit of a fun story. We'll get to that in just a second. But I spent 2 years in marketing where I took over the community aspect. So that's the Champions program, a couple of other things. But then I was also the guy who was most directly responsible for your all's experience moving from the LabVIEW today to LabVIEW NXG. That was 3 years ago, so you can't shoot me anymore. I passed that target on. So that's somebody else's problem right now. Anyways, so that's a little bit about me. Here's what I've learned in my career. There are at least 2 categories of problems that all of us are going to face during our career. The first one is the engineering category of problem, and the second one is the political. So let's set the political aside for just a second and read and enjoy the engineering category, because this is great. the application of science and mathematics by which the properties of matter and the sources of energy in nature are made useful to people. And if you just eat that up, you're like, that is life to my soul, that's why I'm in engineering, great. It's this political thing. So words are important to me. I like bringing definition to words. Political activities, or political problems. It's the activities associated with the governance of a community, especially the debate or conflict amongst individuals or parties having or hoping to achieve power. That's kind of a dirty word for a lot of us, so let me take the subjectivity, hopefully, brings a little bit of objectivity to it. Power just means the capacity or ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. Now, that power can clearly be used for good or for evil, right? But power is a thing. And politics is all about trying to garner that power through lots of different means. So we read this and we're like, that's nice. I want to do that. And I get it. We hope that there is this barrier where these two things can be kept separate. And I think that initially, that's how we conduct a lot of our careers. As time goes on, here's what we discover. The political aspects of your work begin to influence engineering much more than engineering influencing the political. In other words, you might come up with a really great idea. Why don't all the great ideas get adopted? Because the idea by itself doesn't mean adoption. You have to influence. You have to jump into the political realm. Okay? So I just threw up a little bit in my mouth when I hear that phrase. Well, why are these political problems so influential in our day-to-day lives? Here's what I suggest. You are going to deal with people. You cannot avoid dealing with people. You cannot escape them. You might sit in front of a computer 8 hours a day, not talk to another living soul, not send an email, and you are still working with people. Why? Because you're using somebody else's API. Somebody else is using your work. You will never work in a vacuum, period. You have to work with people, and people aren't formulas. And that's unfortunate. I wish that I had an API for each one of you. Right? Wouldn't that be great? I know how to stimulate you, and I can expect a response. And that's not how people work. And that's kind of a painful thing to realize. People make judgment calls. Those judgment calls are rarely logical, lock, stock, and go. There's maybe some logic to it, but we all have backgrounds. We all have our individual experiences that lead to a value system, that lead to biases, and that can drive us a little bit crazy. All right, and here's actually the biggest problem. Look, this is business. Time and money. I don't care about your engineering solution. It doesn't matter. Time and money. Time and money. If you can save the company time, if you can save the company money, or yourself, that's what wins. I don't care if you use the active framework or not. Time and money. All right, but I don't want to play politics. I get it. So I used to think, I'll just keep my head down, do the engineering, and everything else is going to sort itself out. And actually, I think that's okay. If you're okay with somebody else dictating your company's policies, procedures, structure, and organization, you don't have to play politics. You don't have to play politics if you're okay with somebody telling you your specific day-to-day job, its nature and activities. If you're okay with that, you don't have to play politics. If you're okay with somebody telling you what your future career is going to look like, great, go for it. And lastly, if you're okay with the way that somebody listens to what you say, you don't have to play politics. Of course none of us are okay with any of that. We want to influence the tools that our company uses, or the architectures, or whatever. We want to see improvement. That's why we're engineers. We want to fix the world around us. So, all right, fine. Okay, fine. I'll play. So all of us decide at some point in our careers to start talking with people, start using some sort of tactics to gain influence. And this is what I would argue is where we as engineers make our biggest mistakes. Because we start applying engineering mindsets and engineering verbiage towards the political arena. And that is not how this game works. Right? Again, I wish that I had APIs for all of you. I wish I had an API for upper management. Insert function here, pass parameters, management will give me my budget. Doesn't work that way, right? Okay, cool. So here, the rest of our time, I'm going to be talking to you about the lessons that I've learned on how to navigate these political waters. All right, so I'm going to argue, I'm going to propose the most important tool, the most important currency that you have in the political arena, or none, is trust. It's trust. You have to get people to trust you. You have to be trustworthy. Why? So the degree to which you're trusted is going to determine your political efficiency and efficacy. Meaning, until somebody trusts you, they're going to put you on a really short leash. You're not going to have a lot of freedom to do anything. One. And two, before somebody trusts you, you're going to have to do a lot of convincing. I mean, a lot of convincing. And that's going to take a lot of time. Look, I know what I'm doing. Trust me, just let me go do my job. Until you have that trust, you're going to have to go through all the details. Okay. Here's something else that I've learned. There's some people out there that just are natural influencers. Like they just talk and people do what they say or follow them. The institution didn't grant them a title, but there's just something about them. And here's what I think. Influence and authority organically follow those who have the greatest good in mind for the broadest set of people. So if you can somehow project yourself or help people understand that I've got your best good in mind, they'll follow you. They'll follow you. Now, what is good? Well, the conversation, right? But if I can convince you that I'm actually doing all of my efforts and I'm leading for your best benefit, you'll likely follow. So, I found that to be pretty handy. Okay, great. If trust is really that important, how do you do it? Again, this is where we oftentimes make our engineering mistake because we think there is generic human being, I need to gain trust. So what is the system for gaining trust from generic human being? It doesn't work that way, right? So how you build trust varies on your audience. You have to put yourself in their shoes, ask what it is that they care about, and then appeal to their value system. Oh, and I've got these what I call pro tips. So I picked a pro tip for them. These are just little proverbs that I found to be pretty useful. When you all walk away from here, I'd like for you to have maybe one or two snippets that you can say, that was really important to me. These are those snippets. All right, so when you're communicating, know what your audience cares about so you can appeal to their value system. It takes a little bit of effort. It pays dividends. All right, so we want to get trust. Trust is important. Trust varies based on your audience. Who are your audiences? I'm going to suggest 4 different audiences that you need to gain trust with in order of importance. And the first, most often overlooked, but most important audience is, any guesses? Management. What else we got? Good. I've asked this question to a lot of people. Nobody, or very rarely do people say yourself. You have to gain trust with yourself first. Then you need to gain trust with management, your boss. I'd argue you need to gain trust with your coworkers, and then you need to gain trust with upper management. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, clearly, by any stretch of the imagination, but hopefully gives us a framework to think through. Pro tip, all of these stakeholders, these people you're trying to gain trust with, everybody can win. This doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. If you're trying to gain trust with upper management, you don't have to sacrifice gaining trust with your coworkers. If you can position yourself or your value or whatever it is that you're trying to do so that everybody wins, check. Oftentimes in engineering, we have to make trade-offs. That's not the case in the political world. At least it doesn't necessarily have to be. We have to be open to this being everybody can win. It's not a zero-sum game. Okay? So let's dive in. Oh, question?
It seems to me, you didn't say it, but it seems to me that those are also in order.
Definitely.
Meaning that if you fail at one, it's not going to help to even think you could do 2, 3, or 4.
Correct. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. In order of importance, hierarchical. You can't do yourself, your boss isn't going to trust you. If your coworkers certainly aren't going to trust you, don't even bother with upper management. You get your boss, but not your coworker, you're still something. So you're right. These are in order of importance. Thank you. By the way, very conversational. Like I said, this is all very nuanced. You all might have additional insights to add, or I'm not so sure about that. Let's talk. Okay. How do you build trust with yourself? Well, first off, why should you build trust with yourself? Because if you don't trust your own capabilities, your verbiage is going to reflect it, and nobody's going to follow it. Hey, Chris, can you build this new UI? I don't know. Okay, I'm going to go talk to somebody else who can. Right? So you've got to be able to trust your own capabilities. If you don't trust yourself, nobody else will, because they're not going to think you have anything to offer. All right? How do you build trust with yourself? Here's some things that I've learned. Keep a record of your past successes. One of the things that I get the chance to do at Cirrus Logic is meet with my boss maybe once every other week. And early on in my career, I started keeping a OneNote pad or notepad, whatever, of all the little accomplishments that I would do throughout those 2 weeks. And then I go into that one-on-one with my boss, and I didn't go in, silence, and then let my boss start the conversation. I'd come in and say, oh my gosh, I've got some really great stuff I want to share with you this week. So I got the chance to do blah, 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 and I helped so on and so on and so on. And I'm thinking that in the next 2 weeks, I can go do these things. What do you think about that? And I think that my boss really appreciated that a lot. So I put some structure in place. I kind of guided and directed the conversation. I showed value, and I proposed a future plan for what to be doing. Okay, cool. So now that running list is growing over time. That's a body of evidence that I can look to and say, I kind of think I know what I'm doing. Okay. Second thing, always keep your resume up to date. Each of us in our careers are going to have milestone events. As soon as you have a major accomplishment, you're on LinkedIn. You're updating your resume. That is the body of evidence that captures all of your major successes. Does that mean you're planning on leaving your company? No. Right? This is not a signal to your company, oh, I'm updating my resume, No, this is just the spot where you keep all your major accomplishments. And you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're also ready at any point in time to make yourself available. You can, I've, of course, left previous jobs before, and one of the barriers to moving on to a new opportunity is, oh, who's going to hire me? I guess I better go update my resume. What do I do again? I guess I'll just stay. Right? No. Always keep your resume up to date. Okay. Pressing on. So keeping track of your successes, be willing to try new things. Step outside of your comfort zone and take risks. How many of you all saw Scott Kelly's presentation yesterday at the keynote? Yeah? That was pretty amazing. One of his themes, one of his ideas was take risk, try really hard things. And so I'm going to piggyback off of what he said. So be willing to put yourself outside of your comfort zone. Allow yourself the chance to fail. But fail fast. No, pro tip, fail fast. Learn from the failure and iterate. There's no shame in failure. There's shame if you don't solve the problem. So try, learn, try, finish the problem, solve the problem. But be okay trying new sorts of things. Another pro tip. As you're iterating, never bash yourself. Never say the phrase, I'm such an idiot, I should have figured this out. Here's an example. So about 2-3 months ago, I was working with NI Package Manager, and for whatever reason, I was trying to install an NI package, and I couldn't get it to work. Okay, fine. 3 hours later, I find my typo in my build specification, and I saw it, and the very first words out of my mouth were, you idiot. That doesn't help anybody. In fact, I'm going to argue that evaluation like that degrades your trust in yourself, and it's just using brain cycles that you could devote to actually solving the problem. Forget the self-evaluation in that regard. It's not worth it. Solve the problem. Try new things, fail fast, iterate, and converge quickly. Forget the self-evaluation. Not worth it. So speaking of stories, this is one of my favorite stories to tell. So like I said, I was at NI for 11, 12 years. Towards the tail end of my stay in R&D, I came up with an idea called the LabVIEW container. And it's kind of like sets and maps. I like variant lookup tables. I can't stand that the variant lookup table is the equivalent of a dictionary. How do you find it? This is irritating. So I created my own API to wrap the lookup table. Great. I got really passionate about this. And so I started talking to lots of people at NI because that's how you get ideas implemented. You shop them around. All right, cool. Well, I got in front of a marketing guy to try and get my idea implemented and shipped out to all the customers. And the marketing guy said, this guy can actually form complete sentences. He's approachable. He's fun to talk with, and he's technically adept. I wonder if we can send him off to developer days. Let's try it. Well, so at that stage, I was kind of looking to make a transition to begin with. So when I was invited out to developer days, I was like, sure, I'd be more than happy to talk in front of customers. Okay, cool. So I stand in front of customers and I start talking about the producer consumer. I get all excited about queues and how you can pass information between loops, and it's great. And when it was all said and done for developer days, the sales team that was with me walks up to me afterwards and says, what are you doing in R&D? You should be in marketing or sales. So I was like, let's be careful. None of two shall ever pass. Yeah, but I was like, okay, I'll be willing to try something new and take a little bit of a risk. So I decided to move into marketing. And within 3 months, they asked me to do the thing that I was most terrified of all time. Get on a keynote stage. Right? So within 3 months, they said, Chris, we're going to ship you off to Germany, Poland, and Washington, D.C., where you're going to memorize about 7 minutes worth of a script. And then you move off the keynote stage. I was like, okay. I get the script about 3 weeks in advance, and I'll be honest with you, I'm terrified to even open the script. My memory is terrible. Ask any of my friends. My memory is beyond horrible. So I start reading through the script, and I'm thinking, how am I going to memorize this? And so I start trying to, and I can't get it to stick inside my head. I was like, all right, hold on, let's just take a step back. Let's imagine that I get this thing memorized, fine. Can I even imagine a world where I walk off of that stage and feel good about what I've done? And the answer was no. Why do I believe I have to fail? So I had some demons that I had to fight. Okay, fine. 3 weeks pass. I somehow magically get the script shoved inside of my head, and I get shipped off to Germany. That's a whole other story into itself, which is a lot of fun to talk to. Anyways, I get shipped off to Germany. And the morning arrives where I'm supposed to give my keynote presentation. Now, this big screen that you see in the back here, I mean, it's monstrously huge. And before I go out on stage, I'm pacing back and forth behind that screen, just saying the lines over and over again in my head. I'm terrified. And then all of a sudden, I hear my name called. And Chris Cilino comes out. Okay, cool. So I step out on stage, I shake hands with the MC, and I start talking and knock it out of the park. Absolutely knocked it out of the park. Now, before I did this, I decided, okay, I've got 3 chances here. I'm going to do this presentation in Poland, then Germany, then Washington, D.C. Cool. Let's imagine that I totally blow it on my first presentation. That's fine. That's really fine. Move on to the second try. Let's imagine I blow it there. That's fine. Let's imagine I blow it on the 3rd time. That's fine. Because here's all that's happened. I've learned something about myself. What are my strengths and weaknesses? What am I good at? What am I not good at? And I can take that knowledge and redirect my career to my strengths. So I use this not as I'm a success or a failure, but rather what am I good at or not good at? And then how can I make edits to my career? So it's taking a really risky chance, but choosing, I'm going to allow myself to fail, but I'm going to learn from it. And the first time I did it, first time I gave the presentation, home run. Okay, can I do this again? So I go to Poland for the 2nd time, and I gave the presentation, knocked it out of the park. I go to Washington, D.C. for the 3rd time, knocked it out of the park. And I thought, all right, I've learned something about myself. It turns out I actually enjoy talking in front of people. Turns out I enjoy talking a lot. Come by and say hi to me, and finish 20 minutes later. All right. So I learned some stuff about myself. I can actually get on the keynote stage. Fast forward to NIWeek last year. NI invited me as a Cirrus Logic representative to go up on the keynote stage. The very thing I was terrified to do above all else. I've been coming to NIWeek for 15 years, and I remember thinking to myself, you will never see me on that stage. And then last year it happened. They invited me. So building trust in yourself means forming a body of evidence that you can refer back to in order to gain confidence to try the new risk. This video of me in Germany, it's on YouTube right now. I can go back and say, I did that. And I actually watched that video like 2 days before I went out on the keynote stage. And it helped out a bunch. So how do you build trust in yourself? You're willing to step out of your comfort zone. When you do gain success, write it down. Put it in some place where you can refer back to it, because our memories are fickle. So build up a body of evidence. All right. Any questions? We're pushing through this.
So screws what failed fast. So what?
Yeah, so let's imagine, so fail fast. What does that mean? Well, I was at Cirrus Logic. I was presented with the problem, create a new architecture from the ground up to improve validation efficiency. Which architecture do you choose? I don't know. Well, so do you do analysis paralysis, where you figure out what are all the things that I need to do, and aid management give me 2 months to do some research? No, we don't have 2 months of time. So I'm going to pick one, take my best guess, and I'm going to try as quickly as possible to see whether or not that thing I just tried succeeds or fails. If it succeeds, okay, I'll continue investing in it. If it fails, that's fine. We just pick another architecture. So be willing to risk, try out a new architecture, that's fine. But validate it quickly, and then converge towards the right architecture. So that's what it is. Does that make sense?
So is there like a stage of maturity where you think that so your personal trust level is so maintained, or you fail fast too many times early in your career? Is that
Fantastic. So is there a time when you trust yourself so much that you don't even need to try and continue gaining trust in yourself? I think that's what you're asking. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to argue that your trust level is dynamic. It's never static. It's either going up or going down. So if you're not trying to continue building trust, if you're not taking new risks, you're going to stagnate. You're going to forget what you've done. You're going to forget the excitement and the reward of trying a new thing, and then you're just going to coast. And if you've ever, I've done coasting before. And what I find is that when I coast, when I'm not trying new things out, the quality of my work actually greatly decreases. Because there's nothing new, there's nothing challenging, there's nothing exciting. And then I look for the past 6 months that I've been coasting where there's nothing really notable, and I'm like, I'm really not that good at what I do. So, yeah. All right, so that's the building trust in yourself. By the way, the first part of this presentation is building trust in the political realm. The second half is really the fun part. I call it defense against the dark arts, because the political realm is nasty. There's some really bad things that can happen, so I want to make sure to get there. All right, how do you build trust with your boss? Okay, why do you need to build trust with your boss? I'm going to argue the most important professional relationship you have is with your boss, because the organization looks to your boss as a proxy for you. And you look to your boss as a proxy for the organization. So when you're being evaluated, the decision makers aren't coming directly to you, they're coming through the chain of management. So you need to guard your boss's perception of you and your work above all else. Okay? The way that I think of my relationship with my boss is as a garden. You have to tend it. You have to continually be talking to your boss in a winsome way about what you're working on, and talking about the value of what you're doing to your boss in value proposition statements, not necessarily detailed proposition. We'll get there in just a second. But the whole entire point is you have to be intentional. You can't just let this one coast. You have got to be intentional. Okay. Defend your boss's impression of you. So what does your boss care about? Again, we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the audience who we're trying to build trust with. I think your boss cares about the project, whatever it is that you're working on, it's completed with efficient use of time and money. 1. 2, the company is getting its biggest bang for its buck out of you. And then 3, Your manager just needs to know that the overall project is making progress. Things are just working. Now, okay, how do we go about doing that? Okay, let's talk about what your boss doesn't care about, or at least doesn't want to have to. The details. The whole entire reason that you have a job is to abstract the details away from your boss. So the more that you can abstract away from your boss these details while demonstrating progress of the project, the more your boss is willing to trust you. Your boss doesn't care if you plug a memory leak, I promise. I promise. He doesn't want to know that you had a memory leak to plug. She just wants to know, we are on schedule, and Chris knows the different problems, and he said that we're going to finish the first problem in a week, and the second problem will be 3. Right. Fine. Okay, cool. Pro tip. If you don't want to be micromanaged, don't talk about the details of the problem with your boss. Really, never present a problem without a path to success. Well, why? It's likely that your boss has some sort of a technical or engineering background. As engineers, what do? We solve problems. So if you come to your boss with a problem statement and doesn't have a solution, what's your boss going to try and do? Solve it, right? Don't let your boss solve your problem. That leads to micromanagement. Your boss doesn't want to solve the problem. They feel like they're having to do your job for you when you present a problem without a solution. Don't do that. Okay, pressing on. Yeah. Your boss has tons and tons of decisions that they have to make on a continual basis. You want to alleviate the number of decisions that they have to make, not add to it. So if you ever come to your boss and say, what do you want? I don't think that they're going to really appreciate that. Here's a suggestion. So I see this decision in front of us, Mrs. Boss. Here are 3 options. Here are the advantages and disadvantages of each, and my recommendation. What do you think about that? So you've just at least narrowed the scope of the conversation down to 3 possibilities. You've analyzed them, and you've also presented a recommendation. I'm pretty sure that's going to instill trust in your boss, in you, that you can operate autonomously, because you can at least identify options and weigh out the pros and cons of each one. Another pro tip: anywhere that there's a decision that needs to be made is a chance for you to exercise influence and grow your influence. It's also a chance for you to put a huge bullseye on your back, right? Because as you become the leader in your organization making decisions, you're taking responsibility, and that's great. It also means that people are going to start looking to you as, Chris made this decision, it's his fault. It comes with the territory. And I'm in the middle of that, and have been in the middle of that at Cirrus Logic for my entire 3-year tenure, as we transition from text-based programming to LabVIEW. Talk about wearing a huge bullseye on your back. Right? If you guys have been there, you know what I'm talking about. But it's also a chance to influence. I don't know, there may be 800 people on the campus. I don't know how many people are on the campus at Cirrus Logic. I've gained a reputation as the LabVIEW guy. People just know me as the LabVIEW guy because I've been willing to make decisions and lead for us adopting LabVIEW. I also am the guy that's like, that guy's a jerk. He's taking away our text-based tool. Okay, fine. Anyways, right. Other ways to build trust with your boss. Take risks and be willing to estimate. As engineers, we oftentimes don't like giving an answer until we know every last detail of the problem and can tell you exactly how long it's going to take. That'd be great, but that's not the way that life often works. So you have to be willing to take a risk and say, I think it's going to take about 3 weeks. Why would your boss care about that? Because your boss has to be able to estimate the overall project timeline. They have to be able to demonstrate that we're at least making progress and extrapolate it to the future. And if you can't help them do that, you're not helping, you're hurting. And that means your boss isn't going to trust you. So be willing to take a little bit of risk and estimate. Make a judgment call. And so here's a phrase that I found to be pretty useful. I think, insert judgment call here, I think that I'll be able to build executables programmatically in 3 weeks. But I'll let you know in a week and a half if I need to revise that estimate. So you're keeping your boss in the loop, but you're at least giving some sort of a preliminary estimate so that your boss can do their job. Make sense? Great. Ooh. The art of negotiation, right? We have to be able to say yes while saying no. Your boss is going to oftentimes ask you for things that you just can't do, and that's okay. You want to use no as infrequently as possible, because no is an opposing word. It promotes conflict. So don't say no, say yes and. Yes, what would you like to say? Right, so say yes and. Chris, can you implement these 5 new features inside of the validation framework tomorrow? Yes, but, I'm sorry, yes, and I might need another 2 developers to help me work on it. Well, we don't really have anybody else. Well, I think that we can meet your timeline, but we might need to go from 5 to 3 features. So there's all kinds of levers that we can pull. It's the art of negotiation versus me just saying, nope. Your boss is like, well, thanks for that. So you want to be viewed as a problem solver, not just a problem unveiler. Nobody likes the guy who just finds the problem but doesn't bring about the solution. You both. Okay? Oh, so this slide used to be, wasn't yes and. I used to say yes but. But is also a word that promotes conflict. So there's actually a pretty good amount of discussion at the CLA conference on that one word, and versus but. And that lends weight to words are important. Choose your words very carefully. A single word, and versus but, can change the entire tone of your conversation. Okay? Again, building trust with your boss. As you experience success, share that with your boss. So this is my boss, Dan Kimmett, hashtag best boss ever. He's amazing. I got the chance to work with Dan for 3 years. Dan was the guy who spearheaded this entire transition into LabVIEW and test stand and brought me on board and gave me autonomy to make this happen at Cirrus Logic. And I designed some really cool stuff. Anyways, so NI invited us up on the keynote stage. I remember the day I got the email from NI saying, hey, would you be up for joining us on the keynote stage? And I was like, before I even answered, I contacted Dan. I said, Dan, you want to come on the keynote stage with me? He's like, yeah. Okay, cool. So I shared the glory with my boss, because my boss deserved it too. It was his idea. I'm just helping to implement his vision. Share the glory. I'm trying to think what else. That's all I want to say. By the way, I was terrified up there. I was absolutely terrified up there last year. Anyways. Okay, so that's the building trust with your boss. Does anybody else have any anecdotes or any, oh yeah, and you can also with your boss before we move on? Sure.
Sometimes your boss, once you've got a level of trust, is going to unload on you something.
That's right.
And from a professional experience out of, in many cases, they're not trying to have you solve their problems. Sometimes they're trying to help you understand that other side of their body.
That's really good. So the comment was, once you start to gain trust with your boss will kind of start to pull back the magic curtain that they've been hiding you from and let you in a little bit more about the problems that they're facing. They're not necessarily asking you to solve their problem. They want you to understand and value what they're doing on your behalf. So they're buffering you from lots of organizational mess. And Dan did that for me. So talk about, he said, Chris, I want you to use LabVIEW and test stand to do this really, really amazing thing. Well, Dan was fighting with the other managers to make sure that they also agreed. I didn't have to fight with the managers. He fought with the managers to gain budget and time. So, thank you, Dan. Thank you, manager. Go for it.
One other thing, that's really cool. One other thing that we all could be doing, if we are, your boss's boss.
Yep.
Probably here, for everybody, asks you for feedback once a year for his performance appraisal. How awesome would it be if, before he asks for that during that year, you say, hey, my boss and I did this and this, and it was a big win for our company.
Yep.
And just leave it at that.
Yep. So this is praise your boss even outside of the time which you're supposed to be praising them. Okay, so when I started at Cirrus, again, Dan trusted me to do a whole bunch of stuff. 9 months in, I felt like I had incredible autonomy, and I loved Dan's management style. So 9 months in, I read an email to our CEO, and I said something like, I think it was titled Positive Feedback on My Manager. And I started off by saying, I'm sure that you're probably contacted about managers in a negative fashion. I want to tell you something amazing about one of your managers in a positive light. And I said, here's the short summary because he's a CEO. He doesn't have more than 30 seconds. So here's the short summary. Then here's the detailed information. At the end, if you want to know more, I'd be happy to have a lunch with you and tell you all about my boss. Everybody wins in this case. So the CEO finds out about this really cool manager. My manager gets magnified, and now the CEO knows my name. Okay? So everybody wins. Everybody wins. Pressing on. Building trust with your coworkers. Who do I mean by coworker? Anybody who uses your work or whose work you use. What do these folks care about? I'm going to argue that your coworkers, even including yourself, we all just want to get our jobs done a little bit better with a little bit less pain. Because our jobs are hard. Okay, cool. And we all want recognition. So that's what this group of people, at least, I think, cares about. How do you build trust with them? Never attack anybody. Always attack the problem. You concentrate on the engineering problem. If your coworker has implemented a less than optimal solution, you don't say you get it wrong. That's not helpful. You can say, well, I think that solution could use some improvement. So, P.S. I don't think people are ever right or wrong. A person can't be right or wrong. Ideas can be right or wrong. People are people. People generate ideas. Those ideas are right or wrong. Also, we all make mistakes. I've made one, maybe. I've made lots of mistakes in my life. Assigning blame, I've never found to be beneficial. When I was at NI, I got to work with an individual who enjoyed playing the P4 blame game. That is to say, the build would break, and the very first thing this person would do is go to the server, or go to the perforce and figure out who had the last check-in. Let's go bash on that person for breaking the build. That doesn't help anybody. I get what they were trying to do. I want to educate the individual so they don't make the same mistake twice. But shaming them, never helpful. You're not going to win over any friends that way. Give credit where credit is due. All right, so praise your coworkers to their managers and their other coworkers, off-cycle, on-cycle, every chance that you get. We're all doing really amazing things. Your coworkers do really amazing things. Why would it hurt to say, good job? Doesn't cost anybody anything. Now, what's cool, at Cirrus Logic, we actually have this Rockstar Award program. So Cirrus lets me hand out 2 Amazon gift cards, for whatever, $50 worth of Amazon gift cards per quarter to whoever I want. So I can say, hey Bill, I appreciate you fixing the build server the other day. Thank you. That's going to help them trust you because they know that you're not a glory hog. You're willing to say thank you. All right, last thing. Everybody is responsible for way more than we can do. So let's imagine that my coworker Bill is trying to put together a build process with a continuous integration server, and I'm in charge of validation. Well, at NI, I did Bill's task. So even though it's not my job right now to do Bill's task, I have expertise. He's going to spend the next 3 months learning what I learned, and I could spend 5 minutes with him, just giving him a couple of pointers. I don't have to do his job for him, but I can make his life a little bit easier. All right, so, right, be helpful, reasonably. Don't do somebody else's job for them. But if you can spend just a little bit, just a little bit, and lend your expertise to your coworker, it's going to go a long way. Again, you're saying we're on the same team. I'm not asking anything back from you. I just want to alleviate some of the pain that you're experiencing. And maybe one day you'll do it for me. All right, so this is building bridges. Yeah. Okay, so that's coworkers. I don't know if this quote came from Abraham Lincoln or not, but building trust with upper management. I used to think, better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. And I get it. You don't say stupid stuff in front of powerful people, right? Because words matter, and you're likely going to only have 1 or 2 bits of contact with this powerful person. So watch what you say. A funny story. So when I was at NI, I'm the DAC assistant. LabVIEW is almost perfect, but not exactly. So we'd all be working together in our cubes in R&D, and we'd uncover a LabVIEW bug, and we'd yell out, "LabVIEW sucks!" And that's fine, so long as you're in your cube, and it's your cube mates, and everybody knows you. Because one day I was walking downstairs to the lunchroom at NI headquarters. And it was me, my tech lead, and somebody else, and we were joking around. And I'm just about to enter the doors of the cafeteria, and I yell out, "LabVIEW sucks." And guess who walks around the corner? Dr. James Truchard. Talk about career-limiting statements. And it's not like I can go over there and say, "Dr. G, I'm just kidding, I really meant." Opportunities passed. And that's what leads to, you just keep your mouth shut and don't say anything at all. But if you do that, you're missing a golden opportunity to interact with upper management, and those shouldn't be wasted. All right, so if you want to build trust with upper management, how do you do that? What does your CEO care about? I mean, really. What does your CEO care about? The vision of your group, your company, and how well it's executed. Cool. They really don't want to know the details. If I went to Dr. T and said, "I introduced this new drop-down control in the DACA system, and it took me 3 weeks to implement it, he's going to go." And just keep on walking, because he doesn't care. But if I said, "Dr. T, I put this new feature in the DACA system that's going to enable customers to use the new piece of hardware that we just got through releasing at NIWeek, and I think that's going to really affect sales." That's a pipe dream, but you get the idea. I'm connecting my work with the company's objectives. And that's hard for us to do as engineers. Okay, so pro tips. Always be ready to connect what you're doing with the company's initiatives, which means it's going to take some forethought. I call those water cooler conversations. The doors open and the CEO is in, the doors of the elevator open. The CEO is there and you guys have a 30-second ride. You're going to step in and just keep your mouth shut? Likely. But what you could do is say, "Hey, Mrs. CEO, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've gotten the chance to work at this company for the last 18 months. I've been so happy to contribute by owning this one particular product. I just wanted to introduce myself. So I contribute this one product towards our overall business goal. That's how I fit into your organization." I think they're going to appreciate that. Can you come up with that off the cuff? No, we're engineers. We don't improv. That's not how this game works. So always be ready to summarize in 15 or 30 seconds how what you're doing connects to your business objectives. By the way, do you know your business objectives? If you don't, you're just a cog in a wheel, and then you're going to lose interest with your whole entire organization. So what is your business all about, and do you actually care? And then how does your work fit into what your company is doing? All right. So now we get to the fun part. Defense against the dark arts. If that's how you build trust, I would argue legitimately, there are some illegitimate ways to build trust. This session ends at 10:45, true story? Okay, so I have 12 minutes left. If you've never heard of logical fallacies before, there's this great poster at yourlogicalfallacyis.com. These are the top 20 logical fallacies that people will use either intentionally or unintentionally in order to gain trust. I love this poster so much. This is my desk at work. It's right there. Somebody can walk in and they'll start talking, and if I know the person well enough, I'll just point. I'll say, "Nope, that's a straw man argument. Let's back it out a little bit." So I picked 3 out of these 20. Oh, by the way, you can get this poster, I don't know, it's like $10 or something like that. Highly recommend it. Anyways, so I picked 3. The first one is the straw man argument. I think this one occurs most often, and especially in meetings where somebody is presenting an idea. You might have a detractor or somebody who disagrees with the idea, and that person recasts what you said in a way that's easy to attack. In other words, they summarize what you said, didn't exactly summarize it correctly, and then they attack their misrepresentation and get everybody else to agree with their summary. That's really underhanded. Sometimes it happens intentionally, sometimes not intentionally. As the idea presenter, you can't let that slide. Right? You have to take the mic back and reform the original idea in everybody else's mind. And if you don't, your idea just died. So, here's what I recommend. If there was a counter stunt, what I recommend is, "Hey, Mr. So-and-so, I hear what you said. That's close to what I mean. Give me another chance to explain myself really quickly." Right, so you took the mic back. You said, "You were close." So you're not saying, "You're wrong." That's not going to help anybody. So you say, "You were close. Let me try this again." Okay? So So straw man arguments, be on the lookout for them, and don't do it yourself. Don't misrepresent somebody else's idea. Ambiguity. I actually hate the English language because our language is so overloaded. The word overloaded is overloaded. But people can take that ambiguity in speech and actually use it inappropriately to generate alignment with a group of people. In other words, let's say that I have an idea for we should be using the DQ image. And I want to get that through. And I pick a word, I wish I thought of an example before the presentation, for future reference. So if I use a word that can be interpreted two different ways, and it's ambiguous, I mean one thing, everybody else might hear something else, and then everybody shakes their head up and down like, yeah, that's a great idea. I deliver the end product, and they're all disappointed. And then I say, but I said this one word. And then people are like, jerk, I thought you meant something else. So guard for ambiguity. If it's not clear what somebody means, ask a clarifying question. And I've actually used this phrase before. Look, I hate the English language with a passion. When you said Ambiguity, did you mean this or this? And I've sat in meetings before where I ask that question and everybody's head in the room goes, oh. They were all thinking the same thing. They're just looking for somebody to drive clarification. What I found is me asking that clarifying question gets everybody else to actually trust me more because I want actual meaning, not perceived meaning. All right, here's another one. This one's really nasty. It's called burden of proof. It means I'm going to assert a statement and then make it your problem to prove me wrong. That's not how this game works. If you're going to assert something, the onus is on you to show why your assertion is correct. I think that this most often happens for estimates. Or for an engineer making a judgment call, or proposing an idea. Here's what I mean. So let's imagine that you want to do this is maybe a little bit more technical. Anyways, let's imagine you want to do inter-process communication, and there's a couple of different ways you can do inter-process communication. You can do a DLL call between LabVIEW and the calling language. You can spin up a TCP server that passes strings back and forth, whatever. So I start saying to somebody, I think that we should go down the route of using a DLL. And then somebody says to me, that's going to be slow, isn't it? Like, no. If you think it's going to be slow, you tell me why you think it's going to be slow. Don't ask me to prove your point. That's on your shoulders. So the phrase that I like to use when something like that happens is, I like keeping an open mind and considering all the data before chiming in. Sounds like you think it could be slow. Can you help me understand why? Helpful. Make sense? We're breezing through this. All right. So those are some logical fallacies. And again, it's like, 15, 20 minutes. That's one category of inappropriate ways to build trust. Another one is, I call them linguistics trickery. Pronoun confusion is rampant. So read through that. Right? Who's giving the sloppy kiss? The doctor, I don't know. He just loves to give big lists. Who is he? I have heard it, that one, this thing, inserted so many times in a paragraph as a presentation to a group that everybody has no idea what the individual is talking about. But I've just beat the crap out of you with pronouns, and people just go, okay, just stop talking, I agree with you. That's terrible. So always ask, I've gained a reputation at Cirrus Logic where somebody will use the word it, and I'll stop in mid-sentence and I'll say, hey, can you please resolve that pronoun to what the actual noun is? If I'm talking with a CS guy, I get really nerdy and I'm like, I can't resolve that pointer to the value. You know, like, oh. Again, as I drive these clarifying comments and ask these clarifying questions, there's this stress that's alleviated from the room because now we're all on the same page. So you be careful of using pronouns inappropriately. And then when somebody says a pronoun that introduces confusion, just say, hey, can you help me understand what you mean? All right. Unhelpful statements. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So this is making a vague, dataless statement that introduces fear or uncertainty or doubt to try and dissuade people. Like, Chris, I see that you want to do this DLL thing. I'm just afraid that's not going to work. Okay, I can recommend a counselor for you. Don't have your fear taken care of. Why? What's the actual problem? Common phrases that you'll hear. I'm just not sure that's going to work. We've had problems before. But that's in the true but not useful category. I just don't know. It just doesn't feel right. Okay, fine. So these statements by themselves, they're not actionable. There's nothing you can do with that. And they suggest no path to success. Don't use, internally, and I used to call these FUD statements, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Call those out. Help somebody say, it sounds like there's some anxiety there. Help me understand what the root of the problem is. And if they can't articulate it in that moment, say, I totally get it. Well, why don't we meet up in, say, 3 hours or this time next week, and maybe you can walk me through your concern. So you're not saying, you're an idiot. Don't talk to me anymore. You're saying, I think that there's something there. I get that words are hard. Why don't we come and talk about it later? Okay, this is great. I'm actually going to end on time. So in summary, do this, not that. Right? Sidestep the landmines. Realize that this is a political game because you have to deal with people. Legitimate ways to build trust and illegitimate ways to build trust. Any questions, comments, conversation? Is this helpful?
Do you have these slides available?
People are asking me for it.
Or at least the pro tips?
That's a good question. I think that all of the slide material will be made available to everybody through either the Center of Excellence site or the NIWeek 2019 site. I'm also intending on posting these slides at there. All right, so this is a YouTube video link, and I'll figure out how to link stuff to YouTube. Good question. Other hands.
I just had a brief comment about what you were talking about giving credit. I am amazed how stingy people are.
Isn't that the truth?
And it absolutely costs you not a dime or a shred of your reputation.
Correct.
This person did a great job.
So let's dive into that a little bit. Do you perceive that people are stingy with giving credit?
Yes.
Why? What might be possible reasons?
I would suggest pride.
Pride.
I mean, pride being viewed like a zero-sum game.
Yep. Because if I praise somebody else, the threat is, well, why didn't I do that? It makes me look bad because somebody else did something that I didn't. That's not how this game works. We're on a team. We all contribute. So it's really good.
I want to give an example that pertains to most of the people in this room, especially if you tend to rise a little bit up and
Yeah.
up. And that is, most of us in this room are men. Women in a situation, they will make a statement, they will contribute, and people will do this and not do anything about it.
That's good.
5 minutes later, a man will say exactly the same thing.
Yep.
And now, everybody is enthusiastic, and the women, 5 women in the room are looking at each other and saying, didn't you just say that?
Good. So it's claiming somebody else's credit. How do you solve that problem? What would you suggest?
Well, I know this is something my wife deals with frequently in the way she calls me her papa, because on the ride home,
Yep.
she bends a bit, and I say, you gotta speak.
Okay, good. So I agree with you. So if you find that your credit is getting stolen for whatever reason, you do have to speak up. If you see somebody else's credit getting stolen, you speak up,
Yes,
right? Let's defend each other.
yes.
That's really good.
Any recommendations of books or something, because I think it's a wonderful summary of a lot of information.
Thank you.
I've seen a lot of books and you can get lost.
So is there any summary of books that I'd recommend? I'll be honest with you. I'm sure that they're out there. Everything that I presented here is from the School of Hard Knocks, but if anybody has any suggestions.
So I actually took the Dale Carnegie course.
Dale Carnegie course.
And they covered a lot of this. And they also have a book called
How to Win and Influence People. I've heard about it.
And this book has been around for
Since the 1920s. So it's probably got some good information. Yeah. All right, y'all, I think we're just about out of time. Thank you so much for attending. Appreciate it.